So I just wanted to do one more video giving, I guess, some insight, into how a person with depression thinks, because from what I've been told by 3 separate psychiatrists in person, one virtually, 2 in person, that I have depression and anxiety, at the very least. Don't know if there's anything else, because my depression runs in my family, as well as bipolar, as well as some autism and ADHD, as well as a tendency to resort to alcohol. So we have that genetic predisposition. So can see why I'm starting to enjoy it a little bit more. Alcohol, that is, but I haven't gotten to the point where I'd be considered an alcoholic, and I'm at least aware that it's an issue. So I've just been resorting to coffee, mostly. So I've been drinking more caffeine than I probably should. But I don't really care physically what happens to me, so. But I would probably say my anxiety was actually driven by my late father's desire for me to do well in school. Because I used to be a C&D student, and I think it was just because I was lazy. When he first met me, he thought I was an intelligent young man, and there were times where I even surprised him with, how eloquent I could be. Even as like 12-year-old at the time. And he wanted me to get A's and B's. Eventually, I became, a straight A student, but I remember in the 6th grade, I one time got an F on a test, and I just blew up. I had a full-on meltdown because I knew if I went home with an F that my father would be livid. And he was a 6'5", 300-pound behemoth who I did not want to make angry in the slightest bit. And he was not happy if I would get, failing grades. He never beat me, but, he was not fun to be around when he was angry. So there was the motive of fear, or fear was a motivating factor for me to do well in school. Until I got to college, and then I just realized, why the fuck do I have to tell anyone what grade I'm making when I'm paying for it myself? I think the depression probably started to set in actually probably when he died in 2017. There might have been telltale signs beforehand, but in 2017 and beyond, I would get angry and irritable very easily. There were days in school where I just didn't feel like doing anything. Towards the end of my degree, from 2018 to 2020, the last 2 years, and granted, this should have been a 4-year stint, but it was 7 years because, one, I was paying for these 2 degrees simultaneously while working a minimum wage job, and then working a tutoring job that paid a little bit more than minimum wage. And also while living with my parents, I was lucky enough to even have that. But also, I couldn't always take all the classes I wanted each semester, so there were some semesters where I only took like 1 or 2 classes, because that was all there was for my degree at the time. But from 2018 to 2020, I became very apathetic towards my studies. I remembered I dropped a course. Specifically, I dropped Quantum Physics 3 because I one day just sat down and realized I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this fucking homework. I don't like the fact I'm only doing math and I don't even see what's the point of doing it. I didn't feel like I was really getting anything out of the class. Although I would have actually passed the class with a C had I actually stayed. But I decided to drop it, and instead I elected to take a course in relativity, general relativity, that is, because that was something that interested me for a while. And then when I got out, the job search was very demotivating, 6 months on, and I actually gave up until I got a message from a LinkedIn recruiter who happened to be working for AMD that, hey, there's this job opening, which, I see you have these credentials, you should apply. So thinking that I have nothing to lose, I just applied, and I was actually surprised I even got the job. So And granted, this is the job I'm on leave of absence for right now. Um, so, although the position changed, so. But I think just those 6 months gave me the insight that my 2 degrees meant shit. Like my knowledge was worthless. You know, I didn't have experience, but I need experience to get experience. So it made no sense why I was going into the workforce with all these stupid requirements. If you don't want to train your employees, then what's the point? Why did I go to school? You know, you're just passing the burden on to the employees to educate themselves. And the training most of the time is dog shit. So there's that as well. But, you know, the whole job search has made me realize that perhaps I have no future. And that's kind of where the depression really set in. You know, I really just felt like this is my life, you know, sitting in a cubicle, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, doing something that I really have no, or, you know, contributing to something that I don't even see worthwhile. You know, I don't even see what it is I'm doing. I don't even see the benefits of what I'm doing. And, you know, that's kind of where the suicidal ideations began to set in. They set in actually during the whole job search, but there were days, you know, while I was employed where I didn't even feel like getting up and doing anything. I just sat there and stared at a screen, or I just sat there and stared out the window. I would go on walks and feel okay for a few minutes, but then after that, my mood would just be depressed again. The gym helped a little bit, but, you know, an hour or two later, I would still feel worse. So I wouldn't say people with depression aren't lazy at all. You know, from my experience, it's more just we're so apathetic. We don't care because we see the monotony of our day-to-day lives that, you know, what's the point of waking up and doing the same shit over and over again, even if it's a good day. Because even the good days, I just feel like it just feels like any other good day. And then the bad days, it just feels like any other bad day. It just feels like I'm living life on repeat. So, you know, you kind of, I guess, for me, I just project so far into the future, I don't see anything worthwhile anymore. And so I just have no motivation, no drive to do better. Because I feel like it's a certainty that there is no good future. You know, no matter what you do. So, I also find it weird how we treat mental health with such disdain. Like, we don't treat it as though it's an actual illness, you know? Like, depression is an illness, and it can ultimately lead to death, you know, if it's not treated. You know, that was the case with my late grandmother, step-grandmother, but she had severe depression. And apparently it was to the point where she had cancer, you know, 5 years before she died, and she was supposed to get chemo, and she never did. I think part of the reason why is she just wanted to die. And, you know, when she was in the hospital, you know, during the last few months of her life, she put herself on a DNR. You know, even though she kind of lived for my brother, I actually gave up on her because at the time I didn't know she had depression. I mean, I had my suspicions, but, you know, they were never confirmed. And our relationship was strained, and, you know, that's where the guilt also sets in. Because I felt like I just left that woman to die. I could have done better. I could have been better. I wanted to be her grandson for the longest time, and after a while, you know, just all this stress and strain in our relationship, me doing all the effort to try and do something, make her happy, or just, you know, show her that I cared, I just gave up after a while. And especially it came to a boiling point when we had a sit down with my mother, father, and her, and I. And it was over the fact that she was muttering names under her breath. She was muttering names about me or Daniel. And I was just getting tired of it. And at that point, I just stopped talking to her. I would talk to her minimally. I didn't even really acknowledge her existence, you know. You know, there was one night, I remember in particular, she was downstairs. This was after my father had passed. She was sitting in the chair actually to my right, right here, and she was crying. It was dark in the kitchen. There was only the kitchen light on, which now is out. Um, I mean, no one's replaced it, so I have to find a bulb to replace it. But and I did nothing. I walked past her, got a drink from the fridge, and I walked right back upstairs. I just ignored her pain and just left her there. So there's more guilt on my part. I just didn't care, and I should have. So it's just a little insight for someone who has depression, anxiety. What I was thinking, what led to it potentially, and yeah, that's it.